Captain Elias Rowe leaned back in his chair and stared out at the quiet lunar landscape. The new year was hours away, but the colony was silent. Small fireworks in the distance flickered, reflecting on the silver dust outside his cabin window. He had expected nothing. No visitors, no celebrations, no excitement. After decades of war and bloodshed, he wanted only peace. A quiet new year, just him and the memories of his past life. Elias was a man of discipline. His hands, once steady in surgery and battle, now rested on the wooden arms of his chair. He thought about the friends he had lost, the enemies he had fought, and the countless missions where he had saved lives. The galaxy had always demanded toughness, and Elias had given it willingly. But tonight, he only wanted quiet. A sudden, sharp knock at the door startled him. His hand went to the sidearm he hadn't drawn in years. Another knock came, louder this time, accompanied by a strange, low hum. Elias frowned. No human would be traveling to his cabin alone on New Year's Eve, especially not from the distant parts of the colony. Cautiously, he stood and opened the door. Outside, his eyes widened in disbelief. Standing on the silver dust was a creature of legend, a dragon. Its scales glimmered faintly in the soft light, a mixture of deep emerald and silver. The dragon's eyes were large and intelligent, but it was the small, weak hatchling clutched in its front limbs that caught Elias's attention. The baby's chest rose and fell with difficulty, and a thin trail of smoke escaped its tiny nostrils. Elias's mind raced. Dragons were said to exist on the edges of human exploration, but few had ever seen one up close. Now, a dragon mother stood at his doorstep, desperate and pleading, carrying a sick hatchling. His heart beat faster, not from fear, but from a strange sense of duty. The dragon made a sound, soft and melodic, almost like a song, and Elias felt its meaning without hearing words. The hatchling was sick, it needed help, and it trusted him, the human. For a moment, the years of war and distance faded. He was no longer a retired medic. He was a healer, the one who could act when everyone else hesitated. Elias stepped aside, gesturing for them to enter. The dragon hesitated for a moment, scanning the cabin, then carefully lowered itself through the doorway. The hatchling's small body trembled in its mother's claws. Elias guided them to the center of the room and quickly cleared a space. The dragon mother crouched, wings tucked, while Elias studied the hatchling. It was smaller than a dog, but its eyes were sharp and intelligent. Its breathing was shallow, and its tiny scales were pale. Elias touched its chest gently. It flinched at first, then allowed him to feel the rapid heartbeat beneath its skin. He could tell it was close to collapsing. Elias's training took over. He moved quickly, grabbing his old medical kit. Syringes, bandages, and instruments, tools he had not used in years, were now his weapons against the enemy of illness. The dragon mother watched closely, its eyes following every motion. She seemed to understand his intentions. There was tension in the room, but also trust, fragile and new. As he worked, Elias spoke softly to both of them. "It's going to be okay. I've seen worse. You'll be fine." His voice was calm, steady, and it seemed to soothe the hatchling slightly. The dragon mother made another melodic sound, almost like a sigh, and lowered her head close to her baby. Elias noticed the way the hatchling's breathing eased just a little. Hours passed like minutes. Elias carefully examined the hatchling, checking for injuries, measuring temperature, and improvising a simple treatment from what he had. He mixed human medicine with water from his purification unit, adjusted temperatures, and kept the hatchling warm. The dragon mother occasionally nuzzled it, her trust in Elias growing. Outside, the colony fireworks were loud now, celebrating the new year. But inside, time had a different rhythm. The room was filled with quiet determination and fragile hope. Elias worked tirelessly, reminding himself that this was not war, but life, a life he could save with his hands and knowledge. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the hatchling's breathing steadied. Its chest rose and fell more regularly, and its small eyes blinked slowly. Elias let out a breath he had been holding without realizing it. The dragon mother lowered her head closer, letting out a gentle hum. Elias smiled, exhausted but relieved. For the first time in many years, Elias felt the true weight and reward of his skills. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and dangers, but humanity had a place here. Courage, empathy, and knowledge, the qualities that had defined him in war, now allowed him to save a creature from extinction, a fragile life that depended entirely on him. The new year had arrived, not with silence, but with purpose. Elias Rowe, the old war medic, had found a new mission before the night was over. And outside his cabin, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging that humans, even in quiet moments, could still change the course of legend. Elias Rowe did not rest. The hatchling lay in the center of his cabin, trembling, and he knew the fragile life before him needed constant attention. Its small chest rose and fell unevenly, and faint wisps of smoke curled from its tiny nostrils. The dragon mother, a magnificent creature with scales that shimmered like moonlight on water, watched every move. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and full of silent questions. Elias understood some of her concern. He had been in charge of life and death before, but never like this, never for something not human. He opened his old medical kit, dust rising from its corners. Syringes, bandages, tubes, and a few vials of medicine from the lunar colony's infirmary. Everything seemed ordinary to a human, but he knew he had to think differently. Alien physiology was unpredictable. The hatchling's body was smaller than a dog's but more complex in ways he could only guess. Its scales reflected heat differently, its organs pulsed with a rhythm he did not fully understand. Yet, Elias had decades of experience improvising, and that skill now became his greatest weapon. The dragon mother hummed softly, a sound like wind through crystals, and Elias felt her meaning. She wanted him to succeed. He worked quickly, adjusting the temperature in the cabin and creating a warm nest of blankets and soft cloths. He carefully mixed a solution from water, nutrients, and a small dose of human medicine. Every movement had to be precise. Even the slightest mistake could end the hatchling's life. He gently lifted the baby dragon, placing it on his hands. Its tiny body was lighter than expected, yet every part seemed alive with energy barely contained. Elias spoke softly. "I know you're scared. I won't hurt you. I'll help you breathe, little one." The hatchling twitched its tiny wings, weak and trembling, but it did not resist. For a brief moment, Elias saw the trust forming between them, fragile yet real. He began monitoring the hatchling's breathing, adjusting his improvised oxygen mask. He watched the chest rise, then fall, counting each rhythm as if it were a battlefield heartbeat. The dragon mother leaned closer, her head hovering above her baby, her eyes bright and careful. She tilted her head, studying Elias as if measuring his competence. Elias felt her judgment but did not flinch. He was a medic, a healer. Judgment mattered less than results. Hours passed, each filled with careful observation, adjustment, and improvisation. Elias discovered that the hatchling's temperature fluctuated like a human child's fever but faster. He applied warmth, then cool air, monitoring the response. He noticed faint signs of infection in the hatchling's small mouth and cleaned it carefully with sterile swabs. Every detail mattered. The dragon mother hummed intermittently, sometimes softly, sometimes with urgency, almost as if she was instructing him telepathically. Elias realized the dragon species must communicate through subtle tones and gestures. Despite the stress, Elias remained calm. Years of war had taught him that panic solved nothing. He relied on his training, his instincts, and his compassion. He remembered his comrades, the ones who had trusted him with their lives. Those memories became a quiet force, reminding him that courage was not the absence of fear, but action despite it. The hatchling's weak movements stirred something in him, a reminder that life, any life, was precious. The hatchling began to respond to touch. Its small head lifted slightly when Elias brushed a warm hand along its scales. Its wings twitched, and a faint glow spread from its eyes. Elias smiled, a small relief in his tired face. The dragon mother let out a soft trill, a sound that Elias took as gratitude. Her body relaxed slightly, though her gaze never left her baby. Elias knew the fight was far from over. The hatchling could still worsen at any moment. Its small body was fragile, vulnerable, and unpredictable. He checked its pulse, cleaned its tiny claws, and adjusted the nest. Sweat ran down his brow, but he did not stop. Every movement mattered. Every decision could tip the balance between life and death. Outside, the lunar colony continued its celebration. Distant fireworks flickered across the horizon. But inside Elias's cabin, a different kind of light burned. A light of determination, of hope, of human ingenuity. He realized something profound. Humanity's strength was not just in war, in weapons, or in strategy. It was in moments like this, where courage, intelligence, and empathy combined to save life against impossible odds. Slowly, the hatchling's breathing became steadier. The tremors lessened. Elias allowed himself a small smile. The dragon mother leaned closer, brushing her nose against the baby in a tender gesture. Elias felt a sense of connection he had not expected. In the midst of danger, in the shadow of legend, a human had made a difference. Finally, as the first glow of the lunar dawn crept over the horizon, Elias leaned back slightly. The hatchling, still weak but alive, blinked up at him. The dragon mother gave a soft trill, one that seemed almost like a promise. Elias understood. Trust had been earned. Lives had been saved. And a bond had begun that could change everything. The new year had arrived in silence and chaos, in hope and tension, in fear and courage. Captain Elias Rowe had found a new mission, one that required all his skill, patience, and humanity. And for the first time in many years, he felt truly alive. The lunar night stretched long and silent. Elias Rowe had expected quiet after hours of caring for the hatchling, but nothing about this situation was ordinary. As the first stars blinked over the horizon, a strange vibration ran through the cabin floor. The hatchling twitched, tiny wings fluttering nervously. The dragon mother's eyes sharpened, her body tense and coiled like a spring. Elias noticed the change immediately. Something was happening, something he did not understand. The air shimmered. Heat radiated in small, uneven pulses, and frost formed along the edges of the metal floor. Elias stepped back instinctively, scanning the cabin. He had faced danger in wars across multiple star systems, but this was unlike anything he had seen. The dragon hatchling lay still in the nest, yet it radiated energy, tiny sparks dancing along its scales like fire and ice mixed together. Elias's pulse quickened. He had to stay calm, had to stay focused. He began monitoring the hatchling carefully, adjusting the temperature of the room, raising it slightly, then lowering it, trying to balance the strange energy with the needs of its fragile body. The dragon mother circled around the cabin, her scales catching the dim light, wings folded but ready to strike. She occasionally brushed the hatchling gently, coaxing it to respond. Elias realized that the hatchling's energy was influenced by her presence, and perhaps by his own touch as well. Minutes passed, but the pulsing energy did not subside. Small sparks flew from the hatchling's body when it twitched or sneezed, and the frost on the floor spread in tiny tendrils. Elias understood this was a natural response, a part of the dragon's life force, but it was dangerous. A misstep, and the cabin could catch fire or shatter from the extreme cold. His mind raced. Improvisation was no longer enough. He had to think fast. He grabbed a metal tray from the kitchen area and placed it under the nest, hoping to shield the floor from sparks. He used his jacket to insulate one side, carefully adjusting the hatchling's position. Every movement required precision. One wrong motion, and the tiny creature could be injured, or worse. The dragon mother hissed softly, a warning to him, but also a reassurance. Elias met her gaze and nodded. He understood. They were partners now, bound by mutual trust and necessity. Hours dragged on. Elias worked tirelessly, monitoring the hatchling, cleaning its tiny mouth, adjusting blankets, and soothing it with gentle words. "You're safe. Breathe easy. We're here with you." His voice was calm, firm, and it seemed to have an effect. The hatchling's wings twitched less violently, the sparks dimmed slightly, and its chest rose and fell more steadily. The dragon mother hummed in low, rhythmic tones, as if guiding her baby. Elias realized that her energy, combined with his care, was creating a delicate balance. Suddenly, a burst of heat erupted from the hatchling. Frost evaporated instantly, and sparks flew higher. Elias's hand moved instinctively to shield the creature. "Steady," he whispered, speaking more to himself than the hatchling. He applied gentle pressure along its tiny back, trying to stabilize the surge. The dragon mother leaned down, nuzzling her baby, and Elias felt a strange warmth from her body. He realized they were connected not only by trust but by energy. Time blurred. The lunar night seemed endless. Elias's arms ached, his muscles stiffened, but he did not stop. Every adjustment, every gentle movement, was critical. He thought of all the lives he had saved in battle, of the soldiers who had trusted him in impossible situations. This was another battlefield, one with stakes just as high, but with different rules. He had to win not with weapons, but with skill, knowledge, and patience. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the hatchling's energy began to stabilize. The sparks slowed, the frost disappeared, and its breathing became regular. Elias allowed himself a brief sigh of relief. The dragon mother stepped closer, brushing her snout against her baby in a gentle, approving motion. Elias realized that he had not only saved the hatchling's life but had earned the trust of an entire species. He stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow. The cabin was still, except for the soft hum of life support and the distant fireworks outside. The dragon mother's eyes met his, full of intelligence and recognition. Elias felt a surge of pride, but also humility. This was not about glory or honor. It was about responsibility. Humanity's strength, he realized, was not only in battle but in the courage to act when others could not, in the ability to adapt, to understand, and to protect. The hatchling blinked slowly, wings fluttering just slightly. Elias knelt beside it, touching its scales gently. It leaned into his hand, weak but trusting. He smiled. The night had been long and dangerous, but he had prevailed. And the dragon mother's quiet presence reminded him that life was not a solitary journey. Connections mattered, and courage took many forms. As the first light of dawn spread over the lunar horizon, Elias allowed himself a moment to rest. The hatchling slept, still weak but stable, and the dragon mother coiled protectively around her baby. Elias Rowe, old war medic, had faced fire, frost, and the unknown. He had adapted, endured, and prevailed. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of wonders, but humanity had its place. Strength was measured not only in war, but in the courage to act, the skill to improvise, and the heart to save life, even in the face of the impossible. The new year had begun, not with quiet or stillness, but with fire, ice, and the enduring power of human courage. Elias knew that this was only the beginning. The hatchling's breathing was steady now, but Elias Rowe knew the night was far from over. The dragon mother remained close, her large eyes alert and intelligent, watching him as if measuring his every move. Elias could feel the unspoken challenge. Prove yourself, human. He met her gaze calmly. He did not flinch. Years of war had taught him how to earn trust quickly, even in impossible situations. He gently lifted the hatchling from the nest. Its wings twitched weakly, but its small body leaned against his chest, seeking warmth. Elias smiled faintly. "Easy, little one. We've got this." The dragon mother hummed softly, circling them, her presence both protective and cautious. Elias understood that their bond would take time, but the first step was mutual trust. The cabin was still for a moment, but outside, the lunar landscape shifted. Elias noticed a shadow moving across the horizon, a dark shape unlike anything natural. His war instincts flared. He had faced countless threats before, but this was different. Whatever it was, it had detected the hatchling, and the dragon mother stiffened, wings flexing instinctively. Elias realized that he would have to protect them both. He moved to the small control panel near the cabin door, checking sensors and scanning for life forms. The dark shape grew closer, moving fast, sleek, and purposeful. Elias's mind raced. There were no conventional weapons that could reach them in time, but strategy, improvisation, and courage had always been his greatest allies. He looked at the hatchling in his arms. Its small eyes flickered with life and trust. He could not fail. He set the hatchling gently into its nest and stood between the dragon mother and the approaching threat. The creature outside moved closer, now clearly visible, a predator species known in human legends but rarely encountered. It had scales dark as night, sharp claws, and glowing eyes that reflected the moonlight. Elias's heart pounded, but he remained calm. Fear would only weaken him now. The dragon mother hissed, wings spreading slightly, ready to attack. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "We don't need a fight," he said softly. "We'll outsmart it." She tilted her head, considering him. Elias quickly analyzed the environment. The predator relied on speed and heat detection. He could use the reflective lunar metal of the cabin to confuse it, maybe delay it. He grabbed reflective panels and mirrors, positioning them to scatter light and distort heat patterns. Sparks from the hatchling scales added confusion, creating tiny bursts of heat that mimicked movement. The predator slowed, uncertain, scanning for the real target. Elias signaled subtly to the dragon mother. She understood, circling and blocking the nest while Elias adjusted the panels. Minutes stretched into tension-filled eternity. Elias felt every movement, every breath, every heartbeat in sync with the hatchling and the dragon mother. His human ingenuity, honed over decades, was the key to survival. The predator hesitated, confused by the reflections and false heat signatures. Elias's calm, strategic thinking held the situation together. Then, the hatchling reacted. It stretched its wings slightly, emitting a low hum that vibrated through the cabin. The sound was not just noise, it carried energy. The predator recoiled, unprepared for this unusual response. Elias realized the hatchling had powers beyond what he had seen before. He smiled faintly. Humans and dragons, together, could outthink any enemy. The predator hesitated, then retreated into the shadows, vanishing from sight. Elias exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. The dragon mother stepped closer to him, brushing her snout gently against his hand. Elias understood her meaning. He had proven himself. Not through strength, but through skill, courage, and careful thought. He knelt beside the hatchling, brushing his hand along its scales. The small creature leaned into him, weak but responsive. Elias felt a sense of connection he had never experienced before. This was more than survival. It was partnership, trust, and the beginning of something new. Humans could not rely on force alone. They had to understand, adapt, and care. That was true strength. Outside, the lunar night was calm once more. Elias looked at the stars, reflecting on the events. He had faced fire, frost, and threat, and had not only survived but had earned the respect of a legendary species. The dragon mother and hatchling were now his allies, bound by trust forged in crisis. Elias felt a renewed sense of purpose. Life, in all its forms, depended on courage, intelligence, and compassion. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Elias prepared the cabin for the day. The hatchling rested in its nest, eyes blinking slowly, while the dragon mother hovered protectively nearby. Elias understood that this was only the beginning. Challenges would come, threats he could not yet foresee. But he also knew that humanity's greatest power lay not in weapons, but in the ability to act, adapt, and protect life, even against impossible odds. The new year had begun not with quiet, but with fire, ice, and courage. Elias Rowe, old war medic, had forged a bond that could change the course of the future. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and dangers, but humans, with their skill, heart, and courage, had a place among legends. The hatchling stirred, tiny wings flapping weakly. Elias smiled, brushing a hand along its scales. The dragon mother hummed softly. Together, they faced the unknown, stronger than any of them could be alone. The night of fire and ice had passed, and in its place rose a bond that could endure anything the galaxy would throw at them. The first light of the new year stretched over the lunar horizon, painting the silver dust in soft gold and pale blue. Elias Rowe stood by the cabin window, watching the sunrise. The night had been long, filled with fear, uncertainty, and challenges he had not expected. Yet now, as dawn broke, he felt a quiet sense of triumph. The hatchling lay in its nest, small wings folded, breathing steady. The dragon mother rested nearby, eyes glowing faintly in the morning light, a presence both powerful and gentle. Elias had faced countless battles in his life, fought in wars across the galaxy, saved lives, and lost many in return. But none of those moments had prepared him for this quiet victory, one not of bullets or strategy, but of courage, care, and ingenuity. He knelt beside the hatchling, brushing his hand across its tiny scales. The creature responded with a faint nuzzle, small but unmistakable. Elias smiled. Life was precious, and even the smallest beings deserved protection. The dragon mother stepped closer, coiling protectively around her baby. She lowered her head, brushing it against Elias's shoulder. In that simple gesture, he understood her gratitude. It was not spoken in words, yet the meaning was clear. Trust had been earned, and an alliance had formed. Elias had proven that humans could act with wisdom and courage, even in situations that defied understanding. Outside, the lunar colony was waking. Lights flickered on in distant outposts, and distant fireworks marked the beginning of the new year. Elias could hear faint cheers in the distance, celebrating with joy and noise. But inside the cabin, a quieter, deeper victory had occurred, a victory of empathy, intelligence, and the courage to act when others might hesitate. Elias reflected on the journey of the past night. The hatchling's illness had tested him beyond anything he had faced in war. Its strange energy, the bursts of fire and frost, and the constant danger of the unknown had demanded all of his skill and focus. Yet he had adapted. He had thought, planned, and acted calmly under pressure. And in doing so, he had saved a life, earned trust, and formed a bond with a legendary species. He realized something profound. Humanity's greatest strength was not in weapons or power, but in its ability to think, to care, and to act in the face of danger. He had seen it in his soldiers, in the people he had helped, and now in himself. Even after decades of war, he could still make a difference. Even when the galaxy seemed vast and indifferent, humans could leave a mark. The hatchling stirred, lifting its small head. Elias held out his hand, and the creature leaned into him, blinking slowly. Its wings twitched weakly but with more strength than before. The dragon mother hummed softly, a sound full of emotion and intelligence. Elias felt a connection that went beyond words, a bond that spoke of trust, loyalty, and mutual respect. He understood that humans and dragons could be allies, their strengths complementing one another. He took a deep breath and looked around the cabin. The equipment, the blankets, and the improvised devices he had used all told the story of his effort, but it was the results that mattered. The hatchling was alive. The dragon mother trusted him. He had acted with courage, knowledge, and heart. That was the essence of humanity. That was why humans mattered, even in a galaxy full of mysteries and powerful species. Suddenly, the hatchling let out a small chirp, and Elias laughed quietly. It was weak, but full of life, and it filled the cabin with a warmth that no weapon or shield could provide. The dragon mother leaned closer, her eyes glinting with intelligence and something almost like pride. Elias realized that this night had forged a bond that could endure any challenge, a reminder that courage and empathy could shape even the most extraordinary circumstances. The new year had begun not with silence, but with connection, survival, and hope. Elias knew that this was only the beginning. The hatchling would grow stronger, the dragon mother would watch over it, and humanity had earned a place alongside them. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, but also full of opportunities. And humans, with their ingenuity, courage, and empathy, could make a difference wherever they went. As the first rays of sunlight touched the lunar surface, Elias stepped outside, looking up at the stars. The dragon mother followed, keeping close to her hatchling. Elias felt a sense of purpose he had not felt in years. Even in retirement, he had found a new mission, one that required all his skill, courage, and heart. The universe was wide and unpredictable, but humans, he realized, were capable of greatness beyond measure. The hatchling flapped its tiny wings, a small but powerful sign of life and resilience. Elias smiled. The dragon mother hummed in approval. And together, the three of them, human, dragon mother, and hatchling, stood at the dawn of a new year, ready to face whatever the galaxy would bring. The night of fire and ice had ended, but a new journey was beginning, one that promised challenges, growth, and the enduring strength of human courage. Elias Rowe, the old war medic, had discovered that heroism was not only in battle but in the quiet acts of courage, the patience to care, and the heart to protect life. And in that moment, under the pale light of the lunar sunrise, he knew that humanity's legacy was alive, vibrant, and unstoppable.